And for more insight on the fallout from the highest tariffs in over a century, let's now bring in Jesus Salas. He's an associate professor of finance at Lehigh University. Thanks so much for coming on with us. So now we know what's in Trump's so-called Declaration of Economic Independence. Discounted reciprocal tariffs, some exemptions. But if we've all learned anything about Trump, we know this is not the last word. It's the opening salvo, right? The starting point for negotiations. He said as much. What stood out to you in this announcement?
Yeah, I mean, as you said it, right, the first thing you notice is that there is an opening for negotiations. He's specifically asking countries to remove these tariffs or these non-tariff barriers and to maybe buy more products from the U.S. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So the big picture is that we just don't know what's going to happen.
You never know what's going to happen with Donald Trump. That's the one thing that we've learned we can expect. But there were several different tariff scenarios at play: tiered, reciprocal, universal. How surprised are you by the track he took?
Yeah, I mean, this is really surprising. And another part that was surprising is that Mexico and Canada were exempted from this. And that actually has big implications, right? Because then maybe some of the purchases would move, or some of the manufacturing would move to Mexico and Canada as a result of this, right? So there's a lot of moving parts, but again, because of the uncertainty, maybe companies are going to just wait for a while, right?
Yeah. And then how big do you think the burden will then be now on consumers as a result of these taxes? Because Trump himself has said that there will be a period of pain that we have to go through.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, I just kind of did a quick math on the kind of like the biggest partners, and we're talking about about $700 billion of tariffs that we're talking about. And so this is additional money that Americans would be paying, right? So a total of $700 billion of extra, money that Americans will be paying, and this is going to be in clothing, this is going to be in electronics, appliances. We already know cars. It's just really widespread on the impact.
Absolutely. And 700 billion, when you think about that number, it's huge, but it could have been even worse if there were universal tariffs that were implemented today. Trump called this Liberation Day. Dems are calling it Recession Day. Is the near-term pain going to be worth it? There is still so much that's not clear surrounding the implementation of these tariffs. As you mentioned, how are businesses going to navigate it, and how much can they absorb when it comes to extra costs?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to absorb that much. I mean, that's on the first side. But the biggest problem is that businesses just don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, for example, right? So, should they move operations at this point, or should they wait? In some businesses, for example, they're listing products for sale, and they don't know what price to pay, like to announce, right? The customers come in and they say, well, what's the price of this piece of furniture? And the store is actually saying, well, right now I don't know, because I don't know when I'm going to be putting this order in, and so I don't know how much it's going to cost me. And so this is just generating so much uncertainty on businesses that at this point, it's very difficult to imagine businesses reacting quickly and making changes to their operations.
Yeah, and Jesus, let's just call a spade, right? This amounts to pure protectionism, doesn't it? Upending decades of free trade. The long-term goal is his America First agenda, but how long for it to take root, to build factories, online idle plants, bring back jobs? It doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No, of course not. I mean, a car plant takes 3 or 4 years. A chip facility, I mean, it takes forever, especially because of all the regulatory requirements to even start building these things, right? And ideally, or maybe for some people, maybe not ideally, Trump is not going to be president a third time, and we don't know what the next president is going to do, right? We don't know if the next president is going to have the same tariffs, and so it's a good question whether firms will quickly start announcing new plans, knowing that we don't know what the next president is going to do.
Right, trying to, cover their bases, if you will. What do you think the knock-on effects of these tariffs will be? How does it impact long-standing relations with allies like the EU now with emergency measures in place. Others like Vietnam, China, India, hard hit. Is the return on investment worth the ill will that all of this is generating?
Yeah, I mean, Scott Bessent was kind of saying that these countries shouldn't react too quickly. They should be thoughtful about their response. But we are already seeing that Germany is saying that maybe U.S. is not the ally that they always were. China, South Korea, and Japan are having meetings to strengthen their trade relationships and to increase trade because the U.S. is just not going to be the strong partner that they used to be. We're also looking at weapons purchases, right? Europeans are increasing their purchases of defense equipment, and they're, announcing that they're not going to be buying U.S. equipment. The U.S. has already said they're very upset about that decision. Again, these are, second, third order implications that are quite scary. I mean, if you really think about it, right? Because we're only talking about round one, right? And we don't know what round two is going to be, in round three or round four, and it could get really, really nasty very quickly.
Yeah, and then not a lot of time left, but I want to ask you, what, if any, do you see as positives in this trade war and this announcement? Because not everyone is opposed to these tariffs. Is it a wake-up call to other nations? Europe, for example, stepping up its share of defense spending now.
So there's a couple of nice things. Well, first of all, I think Mexico and Canada being spared is really nice. I mean, Mexico and Canada are huge trading partners for the U.S. And actually, if I was them, I would probably be very happy with this announcement right now. I wouldn't be saying too much publicly, but I think I would be very happy. I think there are non-trade barriers outside of the U.S. There are France has these digital taxes against basically U.S. corporations. Korea also has some barriers to U.S. products. I think, maybe they should start, thinking about removing them seriously. They've always said, we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, but maybe this will expedite some of these changes. I mean, ultimately, if this is short term, this could be really good news for the U.S. There's also the U.S. manufacturers, so the auto builders and steel mills. They're certainly happy about this. You can already see responses by unions saying that they're very happy and they congratulate and they're very, they're celebrating these tariffs because they think that that's going to be better for them in the U.S., right? So these workers are going to be happier.